you. Can you please remain standing? Can you please remain standing for the singing of our national anthem? Can we please remain standing for the singing of the national anthem? Can we please stand for the singing of the national anthem? Can we please stand for the singing of the national anthem? And I'm going to be your programs director for the night. And before we do anything, I just want to say, you all look so beautiful. I didn't say You all look so beautiful tonight. I would like to welcome our VIPs, our Honorable President Cyril Ramaphosa, our Minister Matamela Cyril, our Minister Lindiwe Zulu. I'm sorry. She's going to give me a hiding later, I know. I'd like to correct that. Let me say it again. Our Minister Lindiwe Zulu, our MEC Faith Mazibuko, the Office of the Presidency, and I know we are all made up of people from different sectors, and so I would like to welcome civil society, academics, business, and under business we have agriculture, banking, construction, environmental, our writers, unemployed women, women in leadership, informal settlements, and our NGOs. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, welcome, welcome. We had a briefing earlier on, and in the briefing, we got a chance to introduce ourselves. And I must say it was such a great honor. You will hear each and every single young woman to give a word. And I must say it was just so inspiring. It reminds me, and it goes back to a very important woman, Mom Albertina. And I would just like to say, her being the first woman, at the first conference, ANC Youth League. You know, when we look at her, when we look at so many other women who fought for our democracy, I keep saying to everyone, young women like me wouldn't have even had the opportunity to stand on stage and try out for Miss South Africa, because before 1993, black girls were not even allowed to enter the competition. We so often forget where we come from as a nation and where we are now. And you will hear the young women who are going to stand here and speak. They have solutions. They're looking at the problem straight in the eyes and saying, Reina is the young woman of South Africa. We want to be a generation that will be remembered for making a difference. And before I go any further, I would love to welcome our MEC of Sports, Arts, Culture and Recreation, Faith Mazibuko, to come and give a welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for her.
Hola, my young women, hola. Tovicho, my young women, tovicho. This is my flight, lapo. Ladies scream. Thank you very much, Program Director. Let me officially welcome to Gauteng His Excellency, our President, Cyril Ramaphosa. Let me also acknowledge the President of Minister in the Presidency, Matamela Cyril, who is also the President of the ANC Women's League. Let me also acknowledge the presence of Minister Lindiwe Zulu, who is the Minister of Small Business. Let me also acknowledge the Acting Director General in the Department of Women, Shoki Shabalala. Let me also acknowledge all the commissioners from the Commission on Gender Equality who are with us here tonight. Let me also acknowledge all our UN partners who are always with us whenever we have programs here in Gauteng. Let me acknowledge all the progressive men who took time to come and be witness to this important historical event that is taking place here in Gauteng. What we have today is the Young Women's Dialogue. Let me acknowledge all the leaders that are present. For those that I did not mention them by name, let me say all protocols observed. Tonight we are gathered here under the theme, Leave the Legacy towards a socio-economically empowered young women. And we also, tonight's theme is entrepreneurship is becoming popular in our country. Tonight, Mr. President, as we're gathered here, we believe the central issues that are occupying our young women are issues that they face daily, which is challenges such as the lack of business opportunities and the lack of empowerment amongst our young women. And most of young women face challenges, especially when it comes to professionalism and also in business. Other issues that do affect young women are issues of gender equality. Patriarchy remains one dominant problem within our society, where young women are never taken serious, but each time men will climb the ladder and young women will be told, Lindani kancane. Challenges also that face young women are issues on gender-based violence, where we've seen an increase in the abuse of young women, problems of femicide that we see happening, the abuse of young girls that we consistently see within our communities. We believe this Young Women's Desk will create a platform where young women will have a collective and powerful voice to be able to share their issues and also be able to share their challenges. We also believe the redefining and the role of young women in South Africa must be something that is taken very serious. So we hope as we gather here today, by the time we leave City Hall tonight, we will be having a way forward. We will be having a charter that empowers more and more young women. We will be seeing more young women being empowered and not always wanting to depend kuma blesser. So phansi nge-blesser syndrome phansi. Phansi ngama-blesser syndrome phansi. With those few words, I welcome you tonight. Have a splendid time. In Gauteng, ningakhumula nama sand or gabanda. Seningagqoka kahle amabhutsu wenu nawabopha uma ngabe sekushisa ningakhumula amajazi. Thank you nyabo.
Because obviously now, I just want to call the next person to come through. Mali Biwe Ngonzo to come and do a beautiful poem for us about unity. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for him.
Siti alala kwa mamusisuru Usampasile wase wapisa siswani Yapeni kwa kase mafini Kujaba kwa pasiti mapelele Nikasta kusuma tulana kama kama kauzo Ayama yama mama yama kumisana I can't I say to the youth who see the route to the putman, I say Allah to the youth, Allah to the youth, yeah.
Thank you very much. I would like to call the acting DG of the Department of Women, Ms. Shoki Shabalala, to come and give remarks on the objectives and the overview of the Young Woman Dialogue. Please, ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for her.
Program Director, our President, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, Minister Lindiwe Zulu, Minister Matamela Cyril, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. As part of Youth Month program, today we are hosting the Young Women's Dialogue. Our theme is Leave the Legacy Towards a Socio-Economic Empowered Young Woman. If I provide a bit of background, The dialogues are in line with the statement pronounced by the President during the 2018 State of the Nation address, where he said, "This year we will be initiating measures to set the country on a new path of growth, employment and transformation. We will do this by getting social partners in our country to collaborate in building a social compact on which we will create drivers of economic recovery. Tuma Mina spirit to be inculcated in young women, and I guess today we're all gonna say, yes, Tuma Mina. Our strategic focus is exposure to the role of youth in the liberation struggle through having engagements and conversations about history of struggle icons. Socio-economic empowerment of young women and exposure to different business opportunities, fields of study and academic areas for young women, including engagement of young women living in rural areas. We've made it a point that today's engagement includes young women in rural areas, young women living in urban areas, young women living in informal settlements, those from vulnerable circumstances, young women in business, young women in institutions of higher learning, young women with disabilities, and young women from non-profit organizations. But key is young men and boys who will make up almost 10% of participants of all our activities as we roll out these dialogues. This is to transform gender relations and to work closely with them as our partners. We believe that we will have an opportunity to interact amongst each other from different sectors and also engage and interact with the minister who is responsible for issues of women in the presidency. Today's engagement should enable an environment to develop a minimum program of action for young women with an implementation plan that we will oversee. Young women from different sectors will be able to engage with Minister today, and we hope that when we leave this place, we shall have heard from you. Nothing about you without you. I thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a few people who will come through to give messages of support, and it's best that I name each and every single one of them, and then they can come through to the front and give their messages. The first person will be Ms. B. Thongo, the National Deputy Chairperson, who is the National Deputy Chairperson of the National Youth Development Agency. I would like to call Ms. L. Nari, who is the Chairperson of the Commission on Gender and Equality. I would like to call Ms. M. Matamela, who is the Manager, Funder Relations, National Students Financial Aid Scheme. And then lastly, I would like to call from the UN Woman, N. Githuku Shongwe. Please put your hands together.
Ake ngibingelele ngokukhethekile umongameli wezwe the Honorable President Ramaphosa, the Minister in the Presidency responsible for women, and the Minister of Small Businesses, the Premier of Gauteng in his absentia as represented by Umamufate Mazibugo, and any other dignitaries in the House, the councillors and young women in the House. I am asked to make a message of support, and in attempting to do so in the 3 minutes that I am given, I want to say, President, young women are facing a lot of challenges. The first one on the top is patriarchy. And I might not be seen, I don't know, someone is raising their hands, I think I'm short. So one of them is patriarchy from men and women alike. I don't have an opportunity to make examples, I will have made examples. But the second one is violence against young women, which we believe is a product of challenges that will have been there in how we've focused in raising a strong young woman and ignored a young man, and hence is unable to deal with a strong young woman. And it means we are calling for the government of South Africa to start a clear and a coordinated and integrated program to deal with just young men. The issue of men who are enticing our young women with money because of poverty that is challenging all of us in the country. We are saying they must fall. If they don't fall, we'll make them fall. Education and skills has remained a very big challenge for young women, particularly in rural areas, in townships, where you find that they've kind of dropped out of school for one reason or another, and are still unable to go back and skill themselves. That's one challenge that we need to address. There are other areas that we've identified as challenges. We are people who every month use sanitary towels, and our only request is that from the side of entrepreneurship, can we be allowed, can all men and big private entities just sit aside for a minute and allow young women to lead in this particular space? There are many other, in terms of doing business in that space, manufacturing and distributing. There are many other issues that one would like to raise, but in being conscious of time, we will not do that. However, the challenge of gender budgeting is one that all the government departments must look into. It's important that it be done so that we see concerted programs with proper planning and the involvement of the Department of Women. In respecting Umama Albertina Sisulu, we want to remind the country that she said women are the people who are going to relieve us from all kinds of oppression and depression. And it is the women of this country that kept teaching the people in our streets to stand up and fight for themselves. Thank you very much.
Amandla! Amandla! If we are going to celebrate women, we better show some energy. Amandla! Niyabasabana. You look very afraid. Women, are you afraid? Niyabasabana. There we go. To the President, to the Minister, Women's Ministry, Minister, Small Enterprise, our MEC, energetic all the time for sport in Gauteng. As the Gender Commission, we would want to raise this to our women, that I have listened to even myself when I was talking about 16 days of activism. Then I forgot to mention that I'm skipping many generations. I always praise the generation, the June 16 one. That one, 1976. I forget 1986, 1996, all these different decades that we are going through. And today I'm asking us as women inside this room, what do we really stand for? Tina Smelendoni, what are we going to be known for? So we're crying about blessers. Who is fueling the blessers? So we are crying about early marriages. Who is marrying our young children to these old men? So we're crying about patriarchy. At what point are we going to join? You know, the young women of Rhodes, they were naked. They walked around the campus naked. At some point as women, we have to show our men that this body, even ourselves, we find ourselves in this body. That there is nothing that makes us to be so afraid to walk on the street with this body and our buttocks. This is how we are. President, one of the things that we need to address as the country is the issue of gender violence. I am actually thinking that as I walk into the street, as the chairperson of the Gender Commission, I'm scared of being raped. it is the likelihood that I will be raped sometime. It's just a matter of time that the chairperson of the Gender Commission can actually be hijacked and raped. So the thieves in South Africa, they get into our house, they see the TV, they hijack the car, but they just have to deal with the body too. And leave me devastated because they see the body. And what they also do is to rape my girl child in front of me. And then they ask the men, please watch, you are raping your family now. Therefore, men themselves, as we know them, we said men are providers, men are protectors. Well, it happens that they can't protect us, they can't provide. They are jobless also, just like we are. So one of the things that we are asking for as a Gender Commission is an establishment of a gender violence council. We would like the seriousness that is given to corruption in our country to be also given to the killing of women, the raping of our children, and to promote safer streets. Because we can't go to work, we worry about our children. We can't go to school, we worry that we'll be raped inside the premises. We worry about our children when we take them to school. We are asking just for one thing. In our economy, I know that we love the economy, we want to promote it, we want to do something, but gender violence, Pansi! We're asking for a coordinating council. We want it to be resourced. We want a research on why our men, when there is 1% of extra women in the country, they prefer to take everything from women violently. There are extra women in South Africa. We are 51%. So there is one for everyone. Ugly, beautiful men, handsome men, and tall and short men, there is somebody for you. But what we are asking for is for a platform for us, led from the top, to address the issue of gender violence in the country. Amandla! Tobela. Tamisha. To the Honorable the President, Mr. Ramaphosa, to the Honorable the Minister, Mama Lindiwe Zulu, to the Honorable Minister, Mama Matamela Cyril, thank you very much for inviting NSFAS to this podium. My name is Matamela and I'm from NSFAS. At NSFAS, we have been given a very important task of ensuring that young people, the majority of whom are young women, gain access to various public institutions of higher learning. This across various campuses for undergraduate programs. And this we do by disbursing living allowances, study materials, tuition, accommodation. And we do want to speak about accommodation because the security of young women worries us very much. A lot of the issues that persist in us trying to ensure that young women who apply for accommodation and receive that accommodation relate to us being unable to process the applications that we receive on time. You can imagine when you are on campus that your accommodation is the last thing that's most of the times that's confirmed. A lot of the time, students that we service and we serve will receive accommodation in April and in May. We truly worry that you are receiving what is substandard accommodation. The accommodation is not, hasn't gone through the standards that are required. We do not know that young women are safe. Please assist us in applying on time when we do request for applications to open. Please supply us with communication and information and evidence when we require it, so that we at least try to meet you as far as possible on time and make sure that you're on campus on time, so that we can assist you to access your education without the impediment of worrying about other things. Please apply as soon as we open the applications in the year 2018 for 2019, which should happen in August and September.
Ensure that you have a valid cell phone number for us and keep your cell phone number, as that's how we transact with you. We have brought with us information, it's at the back, and lanyards for you. Please make sure that you follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, and please check what we do on our website. Again, please assist us in trying to assist you to have an easy life on campus. Thank you very much.
Your Excellency, Mr. President Cyril Ramaphosa, wonderful to see you again, sir. Minister Batabile, thank you for your insistence, your diligence, your constance, creating this opportunity for dialogue. We were together just a couple of days ago in Deep Stewart. We see your commitment and we congratulate you. Minister Zulu, with whom we work closely with women and small business, acknowledge you. And MEC, we appreciate your energy. We thank you for your leadership here. I bring greetings from Dr. Pumzile Mlambo-Duka, who is our head of United Nations Women in New York. I know my message is a quick one, and I speak to some of the young women and many of the young women who are here with just a couple of messages. I think the first thing I want to say is that on this issue of economic opportunity, we have done our calculations in comparison of South Africa with other countries in the world. And we note that your public procurement bill is 635 billion, just of public procurement of goods and services. The world standard is that only 1% of that goes to women. So of 635 billion, South African women barely have 6 billion of that, even though you are better than many other countries. And we think that if all these young women in the room and across the country had access to public goods and services procurement, we could change the economy of this country. The second thing I want to say is that we are in the fourth industrial revolution. And if every one of the young women who are sitting in this room in every single school in this country knew how to code and how to participate in the world of blockchain and Bitcoin and the new world of the fourth industrial revolution, we would not be struggling with unemployment because we would be creating the opportunities ourselves or for themselves. And we find that some of the resources that are available to create these opportunities for connecting young people, universal service agency funds, are generally unspent. And we've done a study across Africa and found that there's over $400 million that sits unspent. And South Africa is a culprit along with the other African countries. And yet there's an opportunity to connect these young women with the fourth industrial revolution. So we want to talk and see how that opportunity can be created. I just want to follow up on the Commission for Gender Equality's chairperson who talked about the need for this Gender-Based Violence Council, which I know Minister Batabile has been talking about. We believe, and observing from the rest of the world, that South Africa is in a state of a national security crisis. The issue of gender-based violence cannot be treated as a normalized context. In actual fact, it has reached the kind of epidemic in the way in which we responded to listeria like this, where stuff was taken off the shelves quickly because deaths were threatened. South Africa needs to declare gender-based violence as a national security crisis. And with it, position the resources that are otherwise in areas that are important but not as critical to ensure that the response is equal to the problem. We cannot have the level of femicide that we see in this country so normalized and walk as business as usual. This is something that I believe, with the kind of leadership you have, Mr. President, with the kind of leadership we have in Minister Batabile, with the kind of leadership that we're seeing, it is possible to turn around in a limited time. So we thank you for the leadership. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you so much to all our speakers. I think the biggest thing is, what will you be remembered for? Will you be remembered for being the generation that felt entitled and didn't do anything? Or will you be remembered for being a generation of women who fought for equality? A generation of women who ended and fought so hard against violence against women. What will we be remembered for? Thank you so much to all our wonderful speakers. Thank you so much. I would like to call a young woman from Deep Snoot High. Her name is Dipuo Mkhize, to give us a beautiful poem. Please, let's put our hands together for her.
Ladies and gentlemen, and my honorable president, Ms. Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa. My name is the current president of the Youth Enterprise Society from District Secondary High School. The poem said, Memeza was the sound that I could hear. My voice was so down that no one could hear me. I had no one to hear me to raise me up. I tried standing, but there was nothing to pull me forward. I ended up falling. Who am I to cry to when my father, when my brother is the one who's forcing me down? Who am I to cry to? The person who was supposed to be my shoulder to cry on is the one pressing me down. Oh yes, through the lens of South Africa. When you were supposed to be my father, when you were supposed to be my brother, when you were supposed to be my relative. Who am I to cry to? Ngizomemezela kubani ngoba nguwe ongigcinezelayo. Bathi memeza bazokuzwa, but whenever I shout, no one hears me. I try to raise my voice up, but I ended up falling down, back to square one. Energy ruined, soul down, spirit down. Am I going to rise again? Who is going to help me rise when you are the ones who are pressing me down? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dipuo. We're about to have a dialogue, and it will be facilitated by Matamela Cyril and Miss Precious Banda. Could you please come forward and
good evening. How are you? Halala mandabasha halala. Pamili mandabasha pamili. Mr. President, Minister of Small Business, the active, because here you are the president. You are not the minister of sport, so you are the executive. We are not going to say a lot because we want young people to speak for themselves. And the first one is Sinamile Masana, a nuclear scientist.
MEC, all the protocol observed. My name is Matamela Cyril. I'm a nuclear scientist, first African woman to conduct a first African-led experiment. Founder and chairperson of Women in Science and Engineering in Africa, PPF, NEC member. Mr. President, according to the research in Africa, including South Africa, has a critical shortage of trained technologically people. An increasing number of technologically trained people, both men and women, is essential for development, Mr. President. The shortage of scientists and engineers is an issue. The number of women in engineering and science has been particularly concerned as women are still grossly underrepresented. The percentage of female graduates still below 20%. Mr. President, in the areas of science and engineering and technology, could speed up job creation, social upliftment, and desperately need of skill. Increasing the number of women in science and engineering within any company is a competitive advantage, and it will also result in an increase of critical and better access to basic services. As women, we play a huge role in our society. We have the greatest influence on the next generation. We set standards of health and hygiene. We form a majority for the agricultural labor force. When you educate a woman, you educate the next generation. Girls in Africa should be encouraged to take science subjects. Not only those girls who might pursue a scientific or technological career, but also, Mr. President, who will be able then to play a scientific concept in their daily life. And also, Mr. President, taking science subjects should not be seen as a vocation, but as a means of development of scientific technology. This is what our government must consider. It is the problem of math and physics and science and metric. We must invest more, Mr. President, on education incubator program. In rural provinces, just like where I'm coming from, Wanongoma, we must bring the science to the people. We must bring the science to disadvantaged communities and have bursaries for young girls. These young girls from disadvantaged communities, they can't access information. It will take people who, like me and you, graduate and partner with our government to help these young girls and provide career guidance and mentor them. I once upon my home in Wanongoma to allow these learners to come and study since they have no library. And I also assisted them, Mr. President, with homework. I am surrounded with poverty where I'm coming from. Mr. President, okay. I am surrounded with poverty where I'm coming from. I am from a next generation. When my fellow colleagues are busy chasing electrons, when my fellow colleagues are busy chasing Nobel Prize, I will travel around South Africa to serve my people and make a difference and bring hope to these young women. We also need to upskill the educators, like having teachers development program in math and science. Language is also a barrier, Mr. President. What if we can have computers that will translate into our own home languages? Resources are also an issue, Mr. President. Lecturers are limited from disadvantaged universities. We need to develop these rural universities. Lastly, I would like to extend an invitation to launch of the Matamela Cyril Foundation that is going to take place in Wanongoma, my hometown. my hometown. The aim is to provide leadership to this role model. Sengizitumile, Mr. President. We need Esthers of today. The story of Queen Esther shown how she bravely saved the entire nation. Let us allow God to use us to fulfill His purpose and change the world. Alibongwe, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, you got your 5 minutes. It's 3 minutes for everyone. And if you feel there's something that is blocking you here, just breathe in, out, you will move. And the next speaker is the opinion maker. No baby. Mr. President, Matamela is one of the young men that started the movement. Some of us were older women and old age who was part of oppression. And they came to us to say, please, and also the group. And when we said, no, but this is oppression, they said, no, this is a crown. It's a sign of strength. This is where our great-grandmothers used to put a bucket of water. And therefore, they came us, and it did not take them hours and hours to change the way we're thinking a conservative way. Over to you.
Minister Dlamini. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. President Ramaphosa, Minister Dlamini, noting that youth are not a homogeneous population, let me begin by appreciating the effort of the department to have a specified conversation around young women during this Youth Month. President, as an invitee to the Kgalema Motlanthe Foundation Inclusive Growth Forum at the Drakensberg Convention Center this past weekend, I had the honor of listening to your speech that set the tone for conversation throughout the weekend. As you concluded your speech, I had my concerns with the lacking mention of programs currently being implemented by the state addressing the issues you raised in your speech. This was informed by my belief that the state has initiatives that we as civil society need to be strengthening. My sentiments were further echoed by a young lecturer who's currently doing her PhD at Wits University, as she highlighted that she would have wanted to hear more solutions being shared and brought forth in the space instead of a rhetoric around the already known challenges we are being faced with as a society. There's always a need for us to engage on the challenges we are being faced with as a society, as we live in an evolving society where issues are changing every day. However, we ought not to be starting from scratch every time, but rather building on what is currently existent. And only in extreme cases doing away with ineffective initiatives and creating new ones. Tonight, Minister Dlamini, after spending the weekend with some amazing young women at the Kgalema Motlanthe Foundation Forum in Drakensberg, allow me to bring forth the following arguments. On the issue of jobs, President Ramaphosa, one must state that we welcome the YES initiative, and we want to ensure that within the YES initiative, there's an equal representation or proportional representation of young women. President Ramaphosa, we want to ensure that the YES initiative reaches the ends, all breadths. You spoke about arteries in our roads and et cetera, on the weekend. We want to ensure that even the small towns within our country are accommodated within the YES initiative. President Ramaphosa, we also want to caution the makeup of the stipends and salaries given to the young workers thoroughly. We want to caution that the makeup of the stipends given to the young workers thoroughly take into consideration the expenses that young people have, taking into consideration that they come with baggage from varsity, President Ramaphosa. So, in the case in which a young person earns 5,000 Rand as a stipend during their internship, yet safe and convenient accommodation is 4.5 to 6,000 Rand per month, a young woman is forced to be in an area of risk as they look for alternative cheap accommodation, President. President, on the issue of actually, Minister Dlamini, on the issue of the fourth industrial revolution,
After I sat through various conversations around the fourth industrial revolution, I panicked at the urgency of which we need to accelerate our mission to ensure that no girl child misses a single day of school due to a lack of sanitary pads. We need our girl children in class preparing themselves for the role they ought to play in the fourth industrial revolution. Ladies and gentlemen, comrades and compatriots, if we want to ensure that we live in a society that is dynamically and holistically representative of all those who live in it, man and woman, we need to ensure that the young girl is fully equipped and skilled to be part and parcel in leading from the forefront this fourth industrial revolution. President Ramaphosa and Minister Dlamini, this weekend it was young women, including myself, who declared their wish to play a meaningful role in strengthening the state by rendering their skills and knowledge to the state. President, post my involvement in the WITS SRC of the year 2016 and the completion of my undergraduate degree in the BSc Geography, I have consciously ventured into the academic discipline of education in pursuit of becoming a specialist in the sector. But President, my concern is this. I am going to spend the next 5 years getting my PGCE so that I can enter an honors in education, so that I can do my master's, and then I'm going to do my doctorate and be Dr. Nombendulo Katwa, specializing in education. But my concern and the concern of many other young people is that we will enter and knock and you'll fill in layer form, and then you will not get the job, not because of your inabilities and not because of a lack of a skill and knowledge, but on the basis of that particular position is reserved for someone else. And that is the consensus among young people, President. We are losing out on a huge pool of young people who would want to be contributing to the strengthening of the state. However, they are forced to go into private sector because positions are reserved. Mama, I want to conclude by saying that we don't only want to come here and bring problems, we also have, not that we want to create solutions, we have solutions. And if you don't know which young people have those solutions, to Martina, sizonilethela bona.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Felicia Kumari from I know.
Good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Felicia Kumalo, and I'm a grade 12 learner in Itirolezenzele Comprehensive High School, which is located in one of the townships in South Africa, Diepsloot. I'd like to say my thanks to everybody who contributed to the well-being of this event today. First of all, I'd like to say everyone here has been told that education is the key to success. But how many young people of South Africa have diploma, master's, degree, matric, and still not employed? How many young people have all the potential to be employed, to be the doctor they are, to be the engineer they are, but not employed? This shows there's a lot that needs to be done in our country. In our youth, we are talented, and I know, and I am proud of it. We have talented who are good in entrepreneurship, sports, chess, singing, performing. But those talents are not being nurtured. They are not being fed. All we are told is study and study and study to be employed. We are not being taught. We are not being taught to be our own bosses. Never mind be the female boss. We are not being told to own the mind, but to push our parents to work with the mind so we can have a better future in universities. Daddy, Mommy, what I'm saying is, ladies and gentlemen, filling this place, many of you are in high positions. Imagine if you were to take the time and volunteer to mentor young girls in our privileged communities. What could be done? So many of us wish to be where you are today. I wish to be like Mama, minister, and talk and represent women of South Africa. But I can't unless if Mama comes and nurture my talent and teach me how to do it. I can't unless my president here shakes my hand and show me the way and leads me to a better future.
asking only the president, but I'm asking every single one of you. Make it your goal. Make it your everyday goal to help one child. One child per day. And we will make a huge difference. In conclusion, ATP will have many problems that I would like any other township. All we're asking for is help us, help ourselves to help our communities.
Our next speaker is Brandon. So, Brandon, I'm going to more. What we are impressed with, what Mama, we put a AUP what remember in class for that it is your we took a selfie and we asked for my number. One for me. And if you are able to put in, we have to buy in Bambekasa. Ubutuba kwa what now? When I grew up in farm, I used to play with my friends, African friends. And then there comes the time to go to school. Then first day, I went to school. And then when I arrived at school, I got these people that were here. And then I went back home. I asked the driver now, where was and then he says it was the first time we realized that we are trouble. There are barriers. And he knew that as from that day, things are going to be improved. And here, the role of bringing up a child and nurturing a child is very important. Over to you, Brenda.
Honorable President of the Republic, Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa, good to see you again. Matamela, Mrs. Lindiwe Zulu, MEC, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen present. Violence against women is understood as a violation of human rights and a form of discrimination against women shall mean all acts of gender-based violence resulting in or likely to result in physical, sexual, physiological or economic harm, suffering to women, including threats such as arbitrary deviation of liberty, whether occurring in a public or a private sector. At least 1 out of 3 women worldwide have been beaten, forced into sexual acts, or otherwise abused in her lifetime with an abuser usually known to her. Domestic violence, marital rape, women abuse, this devil has many names. So many women are trapped into abusive relationships because they have been brainwashed into believing that they are the only love that they deserve. Only love they deserve is a love that makes them bleed, a love that makes them cry or to question their self-worth. This abuse is a vicious cycle of a father abusing a mother, then the boy which turns into a man. This cycle is reborn into a husband beating wife. My fellow sisters, mothers, grandmothers, it is a bad religion. Bad religion to love someone who abuses you. I'm here to tell you that there is nothing wrong with you. Just because your pap was burnt, it doesn't mean he has the right to beat you. Just because you dress in a certain way, it doesn't mean he has the right to sexually or verbally abuse you. And because he says he loves you, it doesn't mean you should forgive him. It has been said that people who fail to learn from the past are destined to repeat it. My fellow brothers, let us be a generation who learn from the past. Let us be fathers who teach their sons to treat all women equally, irrespective. And abusive men should learn to respect themselves. Let us be men who lead through action and be role models by example. No means no. And to all the women out here, they say if you educate a man, you educate an individual. But if you educate a woman, you educate a nation. Let us teach our sisters, our daughters and mothers to not tolerate any form of abuse. Wathinta abafazi?
We are continuing, comrades. There's so much power in this place, so much powerful young people, powerful young women, and they're going to come forward and speak to you. We are going to call upon Zianda Masiza, a businesswoman. She's here, and an assuming businesswoman, but also speaking for women in the workplace. Zianda.
Good evening, everybody. Mr. President, all the ministers and the MECs, good evening. I'm getting a bit nervous whilst I stand here because of the magnitude of intelligence that sits in the room. Can you hear me properly? I've got a very big voice, so I'm trying to not project it that much. I represent women in the workplace. I have a business that looks after women in the workplace or women in leadership. And what makes me do what I do is understanding the plight of women in the workplace. So I come from a Bantu education background. I come from the background where I was taught English in Xhosa. You know when your teacher says, Mazamisa, which is my maiden surname, was in English, but saying all of this in Xhosa. Then they expect you to formulate a sentence in a paragraph and answer a question. Of course, I memorized myself through high school, and I struggled at university because I couldn't understand English that well. And I stand here today to tell you women that what is standing in our way is not just patriarchy. It is not just stereotypes. The other man is within us. So there's this side of us that has a loud voice of judgment, loud voice of cynicism, loud voice of fear that is standing in our way. Sometimes we get given opportunities in the world of work, but we fear them because society, socialization has taught us we are not worthy, and we believed that message. And now it actually self-sabotages us from a progression perspective. So part of why we're stuck in the world of work is us. And therefore we have to work on ourselves so that we understand how to maneuver the world of work, right? And so I say to the men, we are about to come out, and some of us have come out. Patriarchy is something that shows itself up. It has some nuances that you wouldn't pick up otherwise. It's when they ask you, because you're the only woman in the EXCO team or in the management team, to take the notes. Not because they couldn't take the notes, but because you're a woman. It's when they ask you to go make the cup of coffee, and they're trying to minimize the role you already are in that platform. They want to make you feel small, and you succumb to it, and you become small. So that is why self-awareness and self-mastery is critical if we are to carve our way. So what has made me do this over and above what I do as a human being, the numbers are telling the story. Women, Business Women Association South Africa is saying we've got 22% women directors in South Africa. Of that 22%, only 7% are executive directors, right? Then the stats are also saying for every 100 working people in South Africa, 44 are women. But as a business consultant, I see in organizational structures all the time, the numbers are not showing up. We are not being appointed in positions of authority. We are appointed in positions of influence. So we have to get ourselves ready so we can stand up against the stereotype and stand up against the patriarchy. Until then, we're going to succumb to this stereotype and this mess of being blessed and being blesses, which we don't deserve. Get to know who you are, you'll meet your power, and you'll stand up for yourself. Thank you.
Malibongwe. And for the coming speakers, I'll just nicely walk and grab the mic if you exceed our agreed time, because we must also listen to a young woman, a survivor of gender-based violence. She's here to speak on behalf of young women writers. She has written a book, a very powerful book, of her own experience, and she does a lot of work in campaigning against gender-based violence. So she's here to speak for writers. I'm going to call upon Kense Badirwang to come and speak and inspire us in her experiences as she campaigns against gender-based violence.
Halala, Basari, halala. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Honorable Mr. President Ramaphosa, Mama Matamela, Mama MEC and Minister. I'm from the Northwest Province. I'm from Mafikeng. I'm here to represent rape survivors. Because I'm actually going to speak from my heart. I'm standing here as a person who has been raped, not once, not twice, but 3 times or more. That's the reason why I wrote my book, Katie's Arrow, Cruel Journey to a Purpose. I'm just going to be speaking about practical examples that I see happening in our country. When I speak and ask people, and ask women, in fact, if I can even ask now, is there anyone amongst us who have been raped? I know no one is never ever going to raise their hands. Because that's how we were brought up, in our country to say, when you are raped, you have to live with the stigma of rape forever. And Mr. President, I believe that victims or survivors of rape are not being supported. Because this thing of, these meetings that always happen in boardrooms, say body police stations, there are private rooms where victims of rape can report their cases. It's not true. Because when you go to a police station and you try to report rape, you are going to get a million stupid questions, which always leads women to not report cases and go back home. Because now if you get attitude for police station, they ask you questions, what were you wearing? They ask you questions, were you a little bit drunk or not? I mean, those are the things that make women not to report rape cases. And one thing that I think needs attention to rape cases take far too long for court. Because if a rape case takes 2 years, it delays the healing process. It delays the healing process because now you can't move on with your life. And every time they remand the case, and when your life is just on hold because now you're waiting for this thing. And even, with perpetrators, a person rapes you and you see them walking down the street because now of these processes that are always happening go hot. So if you are raped, this is not the time for you to live in shame. This is not the time for you, to just not do anything about it. Because the reason why I wrote my book is a contribution to say you can still be gorgeous as a rape survivor. I cannot God. Yes, you have to go around. You don't have to go around. It took me 33 years to publicly speak about what happened to me. Because now the stigma of rape, I think the approach should be the very same way that people were afraid to talk about them being HIV positive. I think it's the same strategy that can be used, because we as women, we also need to see survivors of rape wearing t-shirts that says, I am a rape survivor. We must not let our country be a platform where we are afraid to, live, we are afraid to be free and express ourselves in any form that we want to. Because now we are being raped for the clothes, because of the clothes that we wear. We are being raped, for petty things. And I think gender-based violence in our country needs to be prioritized because we cannot have a broken society. Because what happens after you get raped? I went through serious counseling because I had gone through a mental breakdown where I didn't even remember my kids. So please, Mr. President, if you can just look into, the time frame of cases of rape, they should not be treated like cases like your murder cases, because women need to be assisted as quickly as possible, and they need to continue with their lives, and they need to be supported. Thank you so much.
Down with gender-based violence, down. Down with gender-based violence, down. At this point, comrades, I'm going to call upon a young woman in academia, a Marxist feminist, an activist, a Fees Must Fall activist, a writer, a mobilizer. Her name is Sarah Mukwebo.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Precious. Greetings to the President, Minister Matamela. Greetings to the President, Minister Matamela, MEC, and Minister Zulu. My name is Sarah Mukwebo. I am a Master's in Built Environment candidate with the University of Whites with Rands. It's also known as University of Witwatersrand. Yeah, it's Whites with Rands. Tonight, I'll be speaking about the transformation of higher education through intersectional lenses. I was just timing myself. So the socio-political and socio-economic discrimination and inequalities that have been taking place, which are informed by race, class, gender, institutional and spatial exclusion, have shaped and they continue to shape the experience and also how higher education is now set up in this country. And when we speak about transformation of the higher education sector, we need to extend the scope to the beginning of one's lives. So we need to stop talking about higher education the moment you enter the school premises, but we need to speak about the experience of when you are born and the process that it takes for you to get there. And I want to speak about it in the context of a young black girl in South Africa. You know, so for example, we need to look critically into the experience girl children undergo when or in the process of accessing higher education. So beyond the current dominating discourse about sanitary pads, which is a very important conversation that actually needs to happen, we also need to look into how young black girls are treated in their households. We know that there's a large case of family-headed households in this country. And unfortunately, in instances where even the male child would be the oldest, the youngest one would be the girl child is still expected to carry out the domestic responsibilities by virtue of a gender. And this gender is a social construct and it then affects everything that this girl is going to go through. And the domestic labor becomes a responsibility and she still has to be a person that still focuses on her schoolwork. Even in nuclear households, middle-class households or even upper-class households, the girl child is still expected to wash dishes and cook while her brother is watching TV or playing with his friends. And when she's done with that, she still has to go back and do her schoolwork. While on the other side, the brother is actually also going to do their schoolwork without being affected by all these chores that she did. At the present moment in our country, Mr. President, this very same young black woman might not make it into the university premises on her way there because she might get abducted and killed at any time by a stranger, by a partner, and even by a familiar face. The same goes for me right now, that there are chances that if the patriarchal odds were against me today, I would have not made it here today. I would have not been the person speaking here because I would have been abducted, I would have been killed. So the victims of this thing don't necessarily have a face, but you literally just have to be a woman, and that's how your life ends. Drawing it back now to what I was talking about with this young black woman. If this young black woman fortunately makes it into university, she's going to get sexually violated by vice chancellors, by lecturers, by tutors, by fellow students, and also how it happened with us during Fees Must Fall. We had the state and university allow police to come into universities, and those police and also private security sexually violated us. So these are the experiences we have in higher education, whether you're smart or whether you're an A student or whether you're not. And the concept of intersectionality, it's a framework that we then need to use going forward, which should be used to transform higher education, because this framework sort of like tells us that gender alone is not the only thing that informs the experience of young black women. The issue of race, the issue of class, the issue of age, the issue of ability, the issue of sexuality, all those experiences also inform and shape how you experience higher education. And in closing, Minister Matamela, I also stand here as one of the few black women advocates who came together and formed a collective we call We Should All Be Feminists. The reason for this collective is to draw everyone in to come into this space, which we call a safe space, so that you're aware of the experiences young women have in universities and also in great society. And also with this opportunity, I'd like to say a shout out to Nokuleko, Palomino, Lwazino, Tando, Tulu, Mpilo, Notol, and all the other young, great black women that have been making sure that the programs we've had, as we should all be feminists, have been a success. And it all came out of our personal budgets. Thank you.
There's just so much hope for the future, comrades. So far, we pick up that it's not about only identifying the problems, but it's also about finding solutions and being part of the solutions that we find. At this point, we're going to call upon Penwell Maduna, a young man, a student activist, Penwell Maduna, a student activist, a leader of COSAS, who says, I want to be part of those that make a difference. I want to stand out and fight the societal ills that we are confronted with every day. Penwell?
Amandla, awethu, the President of the Republic of South Africa, His Excellency President Cyril Ramaphosa, the Minister of Women in the Presidency, Mama Batabile Dlamini, the Minister Lindy Zulu, and MEC of Sports in Gauteng, leaders of various organizations that are here today, and most important, you, the young men and women who represent a brighter future for South Africa. Receive my warm and revolutionary greetings. Yet again, young people have convened to engage on issues that directly affect them. This is indeed the true parliament of young people. My task here today is very simple and is talk about gender-based violence on a perspective of young men. I have a very limited time and therefore I will try to summarize everything. 24 years into democracy, we need to be concerned about the deep-rooted sexism and gender inequalities that continue to exist within our South African society. Every woman and man in South Africa must join hands and commit themselves to challenge this and to work tirelessly until they are in their totality eradicated. It is a tragedy and totally unacceptable that women and girl children so often fear for their safety and their lives. It cannot be that a woman does not feel safe to move around freely anywhere in South Africa at any time, whether it is day or night. The fact that they cannot do so is a very serious indictment on our society and specifically on how men conduct themselves. Any form of sexist attitude expressed in whatever manner, and especially gender-based violence, must be resisted with every effort that we can possibly master. Dr. Mcebisi Ndlejana defines youth as a combination of the following: intellectual engagement and commitment to the pursuit of truth, a search for solutions to problems that confront contemporary society, and the youthful courage and ideal to change one's surrounding to improve upon what had been achieved by the previous generation. Tata Oliver Reginald Tambo Fera says, and I quote, "We cannot always build a future for our youth." This is a clear indication that as youth we need to play a strategic role in addressing the challenges that our society faces. Yes, we might be young and our jargon may not be at a particular level, but our innovative minds run wild to ideas that can bring change to South Africa. Although it is important that the youth must take the lead in doing so, it is obvious that every sector of society must participate and take urgent action to root out the scourge of sexism and gender-based violence. Every single South African, without exception, must declare #not in my name. Silence is no longer golden. Perpetrators of gender-based violence are dream killers. They undermine equality. Violence against women has reached a concerning level, and it is important that we treat it as an emergency that it is. We need to stop generalizing gender-based violence through campaigns such as the #MenAreTrash. Such campaigns are normalizing gender-based inequalities instead of isolating perpetrators of gender-based violence, because through such campaigns we are giving these criminals an opportunity to hide behind real men. In our efforts to completely eradicate gender-based injustices, we must avoid dehumanizing the boy child. we have focused more of our attention to a girl child, and a lot of times the boy child has been found wanting. These are young innocent boys who are growing up in a corrupted society, and as soon as we start dehumanizing them, they grow up with anger, and some of them end up being violent, end up being perpetrators of gender-based violence. As young people, it is important that we reject the norms that have been created in our society that suggest that women are not good enough without marriage, that women cannot work in particular fields, and that women cannot run big companies and lead the country. Young women must stop competing amongst themselves to please men. We are no longer living in a time where women are subjected to being dependent on men. We need to redefine what we term as beauty. Beauty is that degree that you hold as a young woman. Beauty is starting your own business. Beauty is furthering your studies. Let us define youth excellence as beauty rather than the physical appearance with all those makeups. Mama, your department must be in constant communication with the Department of Education. Our current education system is not doing justice towards addressing issues that affect our society. The education system of South Africa fails to appreciate the fact that before we are students, we are members of our society, and as a result, what happens in our communities directly affects us as young people. Mama, 24 years into democracy, gender inequalities are still a norm in our rural areas. Cultures such as Ugutwala are still prevailing. We need to take programs into deep rural areas and educate our young people that we are now living in a South Africa where everyone is equal. We are 100% behind the work that we are doing as a department, but we want to say we do not only want to be behind, we want to be in the forefront and help address social injustices that prevail in our country and continent in general. We are saying, angeke sithume wena uyi-one. The rise of negative effects of social media that we have seen through the rise of the blesser and blessee culture that is being endorsed by social media and the rising crisis of child pornography is a clear indication that we need to have our own social media platform as young people, Youth Voice, a platform that will be both educational and entertaining at the same time, a platform that will not put us under unnecessary pressure, but a platform that will allow us to live our dreams and showcase our talents. As our president will say, Tuma Mina, as young people we are saying, Tuma Tina, to address the gender-based inequalities that we face even today. As young people we are saying, Tuma Tina, to be ambassadors of transformation in our country. We are saying, Tuma Tina, to bring solutions to problems that directly affect us. Amanda.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you for being here. I just have two messages. because I can see that there's quite a number of young people who have to speak, and you also have to speak. We work with you and we know how punishing the session can be. So we have to try and also give you the opportunity to speak. We can carry some of the discussions here. The first message that I would like to give is that the June 76 generation, many of them are still here. I'm one of them. That generation of 76 are people who took it upon themselves to fight a system. And I've been passing this message, Mr. President. Everywhere I've been speaking to young people to say, there's something they will never take away from us. That is confronting the enemy of the time, defeating it and bringing democracy. From that, they can't take away from us the fact that we then decided to build institutions of democracy. I've been asking them that question. When they are as old as me, sitting with their grandchildren, sipping rooibos tea, those who be sipping rooibos tea, what will they tell their children? Because the generation of 76 is able to tell their children and grandchildren what we did to bring this South Africa. Today we take it for granted that this all was something that we could never step in and have a meeting in. That's my first message. Find your own 76, and the direction is radical economic transformation. Understand the economy of South Africa. Understand the economy of the world. Don't think economics is something that's too complicated for you to understand. If you want to get into small and medium enterprises, you will not make it if you don't take it to yourself to understand the economy of the country. That's my first message. My second message, Mr. President, and everyone who is here, let us take this dialogue right down to where we come from. Because it doesn't make sense for us to come and sit in a hall. These who are in this hall, Mr. President, I regard them as people who are privileged like ourselves. Privileged as we are because we are able to come through here to listen and engage. My message is, can we take the discussions that we are having here to the street, to the village, to everywhere, so that the entire South Africa can appreciate this? In that process of having that discussion, you will not be known as a generation of people who prefer to burn classrooms. You will not be known as a generation who prefer to burn schools. And here I can say bluntly to you, we ain't seeing no other schools being burnt except black schools. We ain't seeing nothing else in hospitals except hospitals where the majority of black people go to. Let us stop it street by street, village by village, then South Africa will be a better place. Thank you. Okay. Tandega, Victoria, Lisedi, and Maja, Tabiso. 3 points each. And not a long point. 3 points each.
Sanibonani, igama lami uThandeka Ntshangase. Ngicela ukubingelela Honorable President and our esteemed ministers. I come from a corporate industry. I'm an entrepreneur in the transport and logistics sector. I must say that this image is not something I see very often in boardrooms. It's very rare that we have a 75% female representation in any type of boardroom. And I'd like to commend our president and our government for addressing that within the structures of government and overall within our institutions. So getting to the point, I'd like to discuss the issues of economic development, sectoral transformation, and access to funding. In the space that I live in and operate and work in, statistically speaking, women have no representation. To a certain extent, it's always single-digit growth. We're always on the margins of 20% representation within executives and boards. This paints the same picture across every sector.
As a woman in transport, at the moment, our transport sector is the only that hasn't had the BEE bill gazetted. And we see the same effect going with the mining charter, experiencing extreme resistance. So my issue is asking, what is it about our sector and what is it about our country and economy that is so disadvantaging to females, despite the fact that we have the highest rate of graduates, despite the fact that we have women that participate in the informal sector of our economy within small businesses, yet the representation and the effects and the trickle down is not seen within our women. So I here now ask you, Mr. President, can you assist in developing, like most of our BRICS counterparts, the ability to have financial preferential terms for women that operate within any sector, within any business? Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. President, ministers present, the MEC. Mr. President, due to time, I would like to cut across 3 points. My name is actually Victoria De Beer. I'm a young woman in politics. I would want to go straight to the point, Mr. President, what politicians does best. Mr. President, I would like to lobby you. The first lobby that I want to do is that we go for the scrapping of value-added tax on sanitary towels. And this must be implemented in the budget of 2019-2020. Second lobby that I want to do to you, Mr. President, is that for the implementation of land expropriation without compensation, that you consider young women in empowering them, but not only empowering them by giving them land, but also by equipping them with financial resources, irrigation, and the necessary skills, and also opening up the markets for this young woman to participate in the economy. I would also like to lobby you, Mr. President. While we focus on the economy as young women, can we ensure that young women are educated and are given the necessary skills? I would like to lobby our mama that are here. Can you become the mentors of young women so that when you leave, we take over from you to your mentorship? I would also like to say, Mr. President, what South Africa is lacking today is the national dialogues. Can we have national dialogues in our society so that we are able to touch the difficult points and come with solutions? We as a generation must carry the baton and ensure that we will live in a non-racial, non-sexist, and inclusive society. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Amanda. Fortunately, Comrade Sarah has already touched on a lot of things that I was about to say, but I'll basically speak about being an activist in universities. My name is Lesedi Seko. I'm a female activist from the University of Johannesburg. What we face mostly, Mama, and this is something that is very touching to me because we have an issue, especially in Black universities, that when young women get pregnant, in the duration of academia, right, they get kicked out of residencies, right, when they get to 6 months, and the universities normally don't look for accommodation for them, but they always make sure that they don't stay there, right? Another issue that we have, mostly that we deal with, is how rape cases are dealt with within universities. Our judiciary systems are very, very flawed in universities. You're expected to go to class with the very person that raped you and face him in class, and they'll still tell you about a process that you still have to go through before they have to kick him out or so forth. So those are problems we face, and those are problems that don't show in our academic records, right, as women. Another thing is childhood households, something that Comrade Sarah mentioned, right? Those are other things that we go through, and those are another thing that don't show in our academic records. Now, another issue that we have in the academic sector, it can't be that, it can't be that as a Black woman, you go through the 4 years of getting your degree or 3 years, and you see a white male lecturer every single year in your academia. So it must be that we change the face of academia. The face of academia needs to be Black, the face of academia needs to be female as well. And that is why we celebrated so much the Vice Chancellor of UCT. Lastly is the violence that we face that is inflicted upon us amongst our very own comrades as young activists. This makes it difficult for us, not only in our academic space, but also in our social lives as well, right? So what happens is that because we want power, it is not allowed. And this is even shown in our very own NEC in the ANC, right? The face that we are given, that we are not supposed to get power, that we are not supposed to get power as women, is that in everything that we do, we have to backtrack ourselves. And this also backtracks our academics. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
Don't say what others have said. Thank you very much, Tabiso.
Thank you, Mama. The Honorable President and the ministers and the MEC. Tonight, President, this event comes at a time where our society is bleeding and families are weeping because of the violence against women. I hope that this is a time, tonight will no longer just talk against the violence on women, but rather act on it with more agency, and that the culture of our society is changed and does not tolerate abuse and violence. This morning I was reading an article, President, more than 30,000 young children are being prostituted in South Africa, half of them younger than the age of 14. And human trafficking, again, is the fastest growing illegal industry in the world, President. We would like to call a culture for change that encourages a safer country for our girls, and we call for the increase to the prescribed minimum sentence for violence against women abuse. And just to close it, I'll just quote Comrade Thomas Sankara when he said, I quote, "Comrades, there is no true social revolution without the liberation of women. May my eyes never see and my feet never take me to a society where half of the people are held in silence. I hear the roar of a woman's silence. I sense the rumble of their storm and feel the fury of their revolt. Oppressors silence black people during apartheid. The women have been silenced too long. Let us not be the silencers, and let us encourage women's voices." Thank you.
We are going to be forced to allow the president to speak because some of you are now going out. Because I don't want the president to speak to empty chairs. And none of were prepared decided to go out and discuss their issues. Must have a problem now because they came here for this activity. So may I ask everyone to come in. And then let's agree that other speakers will come after the president. Or we will have another dialogue. In August, a bigger one of intergenerational dialogues. We want to apologize to young people that started preparing as from Monday. We are very sorry, but it's just that some of us are not used to keeping time. And you must know that if you speak in 3 minutes, others are going to miss their time. So you must learn to keep your time. Over to you, Director. Actually, I wanted to go and pay Marshall this step. Let's listen carefully as President Cyril Ramaphosa is responding to our issues. But I think you should not start sleeping or getting drowsy because we've been listening for quite a long time. So I think we all know the president. You do. But you must know that it's not the first time he's a leader in the presidency. He also participated during the time of Olympia. And he also participated in the unions, the negotiations. Do we remember the negotiations at Kempton Park? Or the president was there. He has served as Secretary General of the ANC. So, as you soon say,
Forward with the young women of South Africa, forward. Program Director, Minister Matamela Dlamini, Minister Zulu, the acting Premier of our province here, and all of you young, beautiful women of our country. And some handsome young men as well. I say so because not all the men are that handsome. Some of them are. Let me voice my appreciation for this opportunity to be able to sit in and be a fly on the wall, listening to your dialogue. I rise to appreciate you all as the young women of our country. I also want to appreciate the young men who have also come forward. I would like to appreciate you for having braved the winter night to come and participate in this dialogue, but also for many of you standing up here on the podium and expressing the issues that are top of mind to all of you, the important issues that affect you as the young women of our country, I want to applaud you for being so articulate, so forthright, so direct, and being so courageous. Many of you who came to speak here have demonstrated your courage in a number of iterations where you have stood up for your rights as women, for your rights as young people. I also appreciate you for following in the footsteps of great women of our country, women like Umama Winnie Madikizela Mandela, Umama Albertina Nontsikelelo Sisulu, whose centenary we are observing this year. Women who have passed, who have come and gone, but who demonstrated great bravery. But as I look at all of you, I remember very specially the 20,000 women who went to the union buildings and confronted the might of the apartheid state and put in place the foundation stones of what became our liberation today. And we must pay tribute to all those women and dip our heads, because our country has really produced great women of fortitude, women of great bravery, but more importantly, also women who had foresight, who were able to look through the looking glass and look and see a future South Africa. I applaud you because many of the views that were expressed here were views that you were expressing about the South Africa you want, the South Africa of your dreams, the South Africa that you want to see in the future, and the South Africa that you want to bring your children up in. I applaud you for that. Many of you who came to speak here have demonstrated your great bravery. Some of you were leaders in the Fees Must Fall campaign that has yielded outstanding results. And I applaud you, and tonight you can applaud yourself because you have achieved a great deal by leading that campaign. When many of you started raising the issue of sanitary pads, I think many men in our country thought that you had lost it. But today, your campaign for sanitary pads has been roundly accepted, and resources are now being put in place so that as young women, you can have sanitary pads. And we thank you for that. I'm saying this to show you that as you speak, we are listening. We are heeding quite a lot of things that you are saying. As you open your mouth and articulate your viewpoints, the issues that you are articulating are not falling on deaf ears. We are listening, we are heeding what you are saying. We do so because the future in the end belongs to you. The future is what you determine. The future is about you, and the future is what you are talking about tonight. And I want to thank you for being part of this dialogue, because you are proving that the adage that goes, nothing about us without us, is a correct one. And tonight, you are dialoguing about what you want to see happening in the future about your lives. And what do you want to see? You want to see a South Africa where, as young women, you will be able to walk around freely any time of the day without fearing that you are going to be attacked, you are going to be raped, you are going to be killed, or anything that's wrong is going to happen to you. That is the South Africa that you want, and that is the South Africa that we would like to give you, so that you must have a South Africa where you can walk around freely. The South Africa that you want today is a South Africa that you want to know will give you the skills that you need as a young woman, will give you the education that you deserve as a young person, will make sure that when you get funding for your education, the free higher education that you fought for, it should be the type that is going to ensure that you have a place to sleep in, good accommodation at your place of education, where yes, you get good nutrition, where yes, you get a good education, and hopefully delivered by a woman lecturer, hopefully delivered through the leadership of a woman vice-chancellor, and hopefully delivered also by a black lecturer, so that you can feel that indeed you are at home and you are getting the education that is completely also decolonized. Now, that is the South Africa that I know you yearn for. And that is the South Africa that tonight I would like to say, we would like to work with you so that we can achieve this South Africa. So that we can achieve a South Africa where your gender, where your race, and where your class is not a determinant of where you should be in life. So that you are not looked at as a woman and that you should be held back. You are not looked at in terms of your class and that you should be held back. And that you are not looked at because of your race and held back. We want all those constraints and determinants to be completely removed so that you can be free as a woman to have your full identity. Yes, beautiful as you are. Yes, in your body. Yes, with everything that makes up the body that you have and the human being that you have. That is what we want for you in South Africa today. We want you to have a South Africa where indeed, if you want to become a business person, you should, as a woman, be able to know that you live in a country that is going to support you. Tonight you are saying you want even a preferential treatment when it comes to matters of commerce. I have no problem with that whatsoever. And I would advocate, yes, women should be given preferential terms when they are also in business, because the women of our country were oppressed because they are black, because they are women, and because they belong to a particular class. And we say that must be relegated to the dustbin of history. You must be empowered. We want the women of our country to be so empowered that, yes, they must come into their own, that, yes, when they even look at a table, be it in a boardroom or whatever, yes, they should easily see that they are 75% representation of even boardrooms in our country. That is what we want to see. We say this because women have an important role in the makeup of any nation. As some of you have said, you educate a man, you just educate an individual. You educate a woman, you educate a village. You educate a township. You educate a town and a city, and in the end, you have also educated a nation. There is truth in that, because women take up a full responsibility for the building of a nation. And it is for this reason that the nation, and particularly men, must honor the women of our country. They bear the brunt of everything that is negative in a country, and therefore they should be recognized as nation builders. If ever you wanted to find a nation builder, look no further. Look at the women of our country and you will see nation builders. If you ever wanted to see home builders, look no further. Look at the women of our country and you will see family builders. We should, as men, honor you for the role and the position that you have in our nation. But unfortunately, as men, we have tended to do abominable things against the women of our country. We have tended to abuse the women of our country. We rape them. We also rape young girls. And we also kill them. And we kill them brutally and in the most cruel way. Now, this is a shame that we as men bear with us. And we would like all the men in our country to raise their level of consciousness and look at women not as objects that they can use and discard, or people that they can own. We should look at women with great honor and with respect, as Minister Matamela Dlamini was saying. We need to raise the level of consciousness amongst our men that when we look at women, we must do so with the greatest respect. And we must start off raising that level of consciousness with boy children, with young men, and indeed with older men as well. And we must start a very strong movement that is going to get men to respect women from a very young age and honor the women of our country and know that they occupy a very special place. And for that, we must say, down with violence against women, down. Down with the abuse of women, down. And down with the killing and the raping of the women of our country, down. And we've heard the concerns that you have raised about how rape cases are handled, the criminal justice system, how it does not respond in a proactive manner on issues such as the rape against women and their murder. And clearly, I want to take up the offer and the statement that was made by Unompendulo Mkhacha, when she said, we have solutions. To Martina, because we all have solutions. And I want to hear those solutions. And it is for that reason that I welcome this dialogue and want to thank Minister Dlamini for having put together this dialogue. I would like to see this dialogue continuing in August in a much bigger way, where we even have intergenerational participation, where we have men also participating, where we should get men to listen to the many issues that were being articulated here. I would like to see a situation where, as women, you communicate very clearly, very bravely, and very forthrightly to the men of our country in their presence, so that they can hear precisely the number of issues that were being articulated here. We want men to take a back seat and to allow women to take the lead and come up with solutions that will continue to build our nation. And one says this advisedly, because it is the women who can come up with all these solutions. It is the young women in our country who can come up with solutions. I have seen how, for instance, on an issue of HIV/AIDS, where young women came up with solutions that they can offer, particularly when they launched the She Conquers program, where young women said, we want to be in charge of this campaign. And as government, we agreed that yes, we will pour well over R1 billion into this campaign. And they said, we want to be in charge because we know what we as women, and as young women especially, go through. And how the incidence of HIV is greatest amongst us as young women. And we have solutions because we know how we can lead a campaign and bring down the incidence of HIV amongst young women. And they said, we want to keep many young women in school and in work. We want to open up opportunities, economic opportunities to young women so that we can deal with the scourge of HIV and AIDS. So I have become very convinced that young people have the solutions, but I've become even more convinced that it is the young women of our country who have the brightest ideas, who are innovative, who are creative, and all they need is to be given the opportunity to put forward their own ideas that are going to craft their lives, their identity, and their future. And this is precisely what we should be opening up opportunities for. We want, at the economic level, to open pathways for the young women in our country so that they stay in school, finish their high school, and if they stumble, they should be given a second chance. If they stumble, they should not remain on the floor forever. We should open opportunities for them so that they can take up new opportunities and move forward. When they get to higher education, yes, the government has responded very positively with regard to the funding of young people from working class families and poor families, that they should get free education. I have a dream, and the dream finally is that, yes, there should be complete free education for all the young people in our country. I want to see that dream fulfilled. It may not be fulfilled now, but for now, part of that dream is being fulfilled as we speak, for free education for children from poor families and working class families. And it is in this regard that we should recognize that our government is a government that listens. It is a government that gives an ear. It pays attention to what the young people of our country are saying. And similarly, tonight, as you are articulating the various issues, and in August, as you will articulate other issues, I can say with great assurance that we will be listening, we will be taking note, and these are things that we will so pay attention to that many of those will be fulfilled. At the economic level, we want to pay attention to the creation of jobs for the young people in our country. We are making this a special area of focus in our government right now. The great priority is to make sure that we create jobs for the young people in our country, because they bear the biggest burden of unemployment. They bear the biggest burden of poverty. And it is the young women who even bear a greater burden when they are unemployed. For that reason, we want to open pathways, and we're doing everything we can to open opportunities, to open chances, to create jobs. Recently, we launched the Yes campaign or project. And I can say right now, we are finding that many of the participants in the Yes project are young women. They are coming forward in their thousands, participating in this Yes campaign. And I would like to invite you all as young women, act out your bravery, act out your courage, the courage that you learned from Winnie Mandela, the courage that you learned from Umama or Albertina Sisulu, the courage that you learned from Charlotte Makleke, from Lillian Goyi, from all the great women in our country. We are a country that has been blessed in that we've had so many great women. And I'm saying to you tonight, continue being brave, continue being articulate. Do not be afraid. Do not hold yourself back. Be the true South African brave women who proved their bravery in the 50s and led a struggle against the might of the apartheid government. Today, you have a government that is on your side. You have a government that is willing and prepared to listen. And you have a government that is prepared to sit down with you in dialogue. But more importantly, you have a government that has a plethora of women ministers who know your situation. It was you, as the women of our country, who said you wanted a ministry of women. But you also said we don't want it anywhere else. We want it in the presidency. Today you have a ministry of women right in the presidency. Uzayithola kanjani? Mawuhlele khoneni. The Ministry of Women is right there in the union buildings. Ngithi nje mangiphuma e-office yami ngihlangana nobani noBathabile Dlamini ungibheke emehlweni athi, President, what are you doing for the women of our country? They are right there at the union buildings. Uma ngithi ngijika ngapha ngihlangana no uDr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma right there in the presidency. So in the presidency, mina no DP, we are almost a minority because we've got these powerful women who are continuously raising issues of women. If you listen to Minister Lindiwe Zulu, she is forever talking about the participation of women in business, in small and medium enterprises. Each time when she opens her mouth, she focuses on opportunities that should be opened for women in business, and not only in small business, but also big business. And often says, where is the role of women in all this? What I'm trying to say is that we are a government that has become very sensitive to the issues of women. And where we are lacking, we want you to engage in dialogue with us so that we can double up. Double up in a way where we will be able to address the issues that you raise. I was very pleased to have gone to the meeting of the G7 in Canada and to meet the Prime Minister of Canada, a young man who has taken up the issue of gender and women in the strongest way. He was able to interact with his other G7 colleagues, and within 2 hours, he had raised $3.8 billion to be used to support vulnerable young women in a number of countries around the world. If you are not able to calculate the $3.8 billion, it is easily more than 45 billion rand that he raised within 2 hours for the support of young women in a number of countries in the world. When I looked at him, I said, yes, this is the type of person I can work with. This is the type of person who knows the issues that affect women, not only in his own country, but around the world. Now, here in our own country, we have become gender sensitive. We want to do good by the women of our country. We want to address the issue of violence against women with greater determination. And I heard the suggestion, we must address it as hard as we are addressing the issue of corruption. And I agree with that. I agree with that. We are putting a lot of emphasis on rooting out corruption from the face of South Africa. And I agree that similarly, we must pay attention to the issue of violence and abuse of women in our country. A suggestion has also been made that we should set up a council on violence against women. I agree with that as well. I believe that to raise the issue of violence against women, we must put it at a high level. I am willing that we should have a discussion about setting up a council on violence against women and find a place where we can locate it. So I agree, this is an open door. I think it will raise the issue of violence against women to a higher level. And I would like to see that happening. And I want us to talk about it and know where we should put it. I say this because it is important. Because we have become a country where the killing of women and the rape of women is actually putting us to shame in the whole world. And it is therefore important that we should address it, and address it in the strongest of ways, but also address it in a way where we will empower men, empower young men and men in general, that their level of consciousness on this issue should go up. We should raise, working together, the level of consciousness of men on the issue of violence against women and children as well. We want to be able to do this so that we can be proud, all of us, be proud of the men of our country in the way that they will be relating to their women. We can be proud of the honor that the men of our country will be putting towards the women of our country, and treat them with dignity, treat them with respect, and honor them in everything that we do. Because after all, amongst everything else, they are the mothers of our nation. So colleagues, I am very pleased to have been given this very rare opportunity of being amongst you and hearing you address all the key issues, from young girls who are still in school and in grade 11 and 12, to older women who are still young but who are now in business, about all the issues that you have raised. Also from women who have been abused, but who have risen and who want to help others, and from women who are facing great challenges and difficulties. And I'd like to say, we want to walk this journey with you. The issue of the empowerment of women in our country is high on our agenda. We want to focus on empowering women. We want to focus on making sure that the youth in our country have their place of future in everything that we do in our country. Our country faces many challenges, and it is for this reason that we are trying as many things as possible to make sure that we position the young people in our country and the women especially in a better way than they have been in the past, because they bear the brunt of everything that goes wrong in our country. We want to and continue working with you. I particularly welcomed what Nompendulo said and said, let us work together. And I want to invite all of you to work together with us. And I am privileged to be working with ministers, women ministers, who know their stuff, who give us guidance, who are able to show the way in terms of what needs to be done. And we want to lead from the front on this issue of the empowerment of women in all its aspects, be it economically, be it socially, be it academically, be it in every other way. The dialogue that we held with professionals a few weeks ago was also a precursor to what we are having today. And we are going to continue having dialogues with a number of professionals, you as young women and the youth generally, so that we can benefit from your wisdom and we can get good ideas. I would like to see South Africa leading in the way, one, that it treats its women, how it empowers its women. I would like South Africa leading in the way that it empowers the young people in our country. And this, I believe, is possible. And of course, the women in our country and the youth in our country are the future. And we would like to present that future. But it is not only us who must present that future to you. You must craft the future that you want. Because in the end, it is the South Africa that you want that you must get involved in building. So tonight, I think you have identified the building blocks that are going to enable us to continue building this future. And it is your South Africa, your future South Africa, and it is the South Africa that you must build. And we therefore, as I end, say that it is time for young women in our country to take their rightful place in the life of our nation and lead from the front. And it is your time as the young women in our country to lead South Africa and to shine. Earlier, before I came, I heard that a number of you were saying, yes, I am the future minister of this, the minister of that, and so forth. But I also heard that one of you stood up that I am the president. When I heard that, I said, whoa, wangathi umsebenzi wami uzawuphela ke manje. So I may be replaced very soon by one of the young women who are sitting here. And I can show you that it will be a pleasant replacement. Rise, whoever wants to be the next president of South Africa, come to the fore and take the reins and lead our country forward. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, thank you so much and for letting us know that we are being led by a government that's willing to give us an ear. And we do have a group of young women who definitely do really have the solutions to the problems that are currently taking place. And so I would like to call Nolutando Njaba to just come and thank the President.
Sanwanani. I'd like to thank you, Mr. President, for listening and responding to the issues that were raised today by some of the young women and men. Firstly, I myself, being raised by a single, hardworking woman who survived physical violence and abuse in a marriage, she was able to use her strength and courage to leave that marriage so that I could be here today. Today, I'm a graduate at the University of Western Cape, cum laude, furthering my studies at, yes, I'm furthering my studies at the University of Pretoria. I'm doing informatics and currently doing my internship at Microsoft. President, sizwile ukuthi uphethefuna sikuthume. So siyakuthuma. We want you to change. We want change in our lifetime. We want you to take these issues back to your colleagues so that you guys can actually act upon the issues that were discussed today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nolutando. I'd like to call Rwanda down to do vote of thanks.
His Excellency Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa, good to see you again, Mr. President, the President of the Republic of South Africa. Honorable Minister Matamela Cyril, Honorable Minister Melini Wezulu, Premier of the Gauteng Province in absentia, represented here by Honorable Faith Mazibuko, the MC of Sports. Ms. Babeni Neshongwa, Mem Pomatlala, Me Lula Minare, Me N. Shongwe, the acting DG, Ms. Shongwe Shabalala, Ms. Precious Banda, Program Director, and ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. It is my great privilege and honor to have been asked to propose a vote of thanks on this important occasion. On behalf of the Department of Women, I extend a very hearty vote of thanks to all speakers for gracing this important dialogue, and to those that did not get a chance to speak, definitely we'll be seeing each other in August as we move forward. A big thank you to His Excellency, Dr. Cyril Matamela Ramaphosa, for being with us today and engaging young women on various issues that are affecting us in society. We thank you, Mr. President, that you and cabinet colleagues and government will provide strategic leadership and guidance in making South Africa a better country for women, emancipation and empowerment. Indeed, as you have emphasized, Mr. President, that when Nompendule says too much in Aulanye, we want to build this country, we want to see this country prospering as the future. I would also like to quote Frans Fanon, as Minister Lindwe told, that each generation must define its mission. Frans Fanon, open quote, says, each generation must discover its mission, fulfilled or betrayed. And as this generation did, we have defined our mission, which is also economic freedom in our lifetime. The issue of gender violence is something that we indeed must work with, but working very close with the government and making sure that the social ills within our society are eradicated. I would like to thank Minister Matamela Cyril for putting together young women under one roof from different sectors for such to reflect about many issues affecting young women. I would also like to thank the staff from the department for the time they've put into making sure this dialogue becomes a success that it has been. I would also like to thank the program director, did a very good job. Finally, I would like to thank each and every one of you present this evening for being with us today. Siyabonga. Thank you very much, and please know that there will be deep dinner served. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roboni. Could we please remain seated as they bring in the future president? Can we please rise as our president leads?
Hello. Please bring my hand back.